Hi, my name is Scott Wilson with Foy Incorporated, and in this video we will be discussing EPICS basics. And by EPICS basics, I am referring to some common controls, common things that you will need to know to navigate most EPICS screens. Those include the EPICS control panel, the drop-down lists, and some right-click navigation. So let's begin with the control panel. And for our first example, I have opened the Maintain Customers screen. At the top of this screen, you can see the control panel. And what I'm referring to as the control panel is this entire top bar, or the second from the top bar, with Find, you see, as the currently selected mode on the far left. Some mode selection buttons that you will see here in this middle section. And these action or execute buttons over here on the far right. So let's just take those one at a time, beginning with the mode selection indicator. So you see the word find. We are currently in find mode. EPICS is waiting for us to find records. So it will find records and then we will view them. But currently we're in this find mode. All right. Then over on the far right, you see the action button, or like I say, the execute button. Currently it says find. So the execute button here will always show you what it is you're about to do if you click that button. Okay, so I will click find, and then you'll see now that EPICS has returned all of my customer records. I am currently now in view mode. So we were in find, now we're in view. You can see that we're looking at one of 78 records. And you also see there are now more mode selections. So I could potentially delete this record. I could make some changes to it. I could edit the record. Or I could just start a new customer record altogether here. Or I could return to find mode and find a different set of records. So that's actually what I want to do right now, is just return to find mode and show you some various ways that you can find records. So I click find, because I don't want to see all of my customer records. Let's say I want to see only a certain set of records. In this case, maybe only a certain state. So I am going to this state drop-down box, and I want to choose Illinois. I want to find all of my Illinois customers. So I simply choose the value, I provide my example of what I want to see, and then I go to the top right and I click find. Okay, so now we can see that we have only 5 customers, and you see right beside the record count this control for navigating through the records. So I can click plus or minus, or I can use the far left to go to the first record, or the far right to go to the last record. And then finally, I can also use the arrow keys on my keyboard. So just set the mouse aside and just using the arrow keys to navigate through those records one at a time. Okay, but I have now found all of my 5 Illinois customers. Notice that the state field, the state province field, is highlighted with this gray background, indicating to me that I am not looking at all of my customer records. I am only looking at Illinois customers in this case. Okay, but you can use any combination of fields to find records. It doesn't have to be just one at a time. So let me show you an example of that. Let me return once again to find mode. Okay, so you see I'm back in find mode. You can see also that it has retained my last selection. Okay, so I will keep that there. But now I want to add to that. Let's use pay terms as an example. So I know that I have some customers with a pay terms code of net 30. So I will choose that code, add this to my selection. I have 2 things now in my example. And then I come up to the top right and I click find. So now I see that I have 4 customer records instead of 5. So these are 4 records for Illinois customers with pay terms of net 30. Okay, so that's another example of using find mode, in this case for multiple selections. So we have seen how to use those drop-down lists to find information, but like I said, we can use any field on the screen, so we're not confined to just those two. So I will return to find mode again and show you another example of how you can find information. So if I want to start a new search and I want to clear out my previous search, you can see that Illinois is still there and Net 30 is still there. Let me clear those fields by going to the top right corner, and there is a clear fields button. You can see this blue kind of back arrow button here. So we click there, and that will clear out my previous selection of fields. So for this example, I want to use the customer name. Here's the customer name, and I will simply type a part of my customer name, which is Acme. So I'm typing in Acme and then click find. All right, so this brings back 4 customer records. As I navigate through those, I can see I have, well, Acme Bazookas, okay, Acme Corporation, Acme Pogo Sticks, okay, and Acme Unicycles. So there are my 4 customers that begin with the word Acme. If I return to find, once again, you can see what it was that I used as my example, okay? So I'll click find again, brings back those 4 records, okay? But the thing I want you to understand is that it's finding all the records that match what you have typed in, all the records that start with what you have typed in. So for example, if I return to find and I type Acme space corporation, or just a bit of corporation, and then click find again, it returns only the one customer record. You see there, Acme Corporation. Okay, there are a number of other examples I want to give to you. So to continue with some other examples, let's use the maintain dies screen. All right, so here's maintain dies. And just for the sake of example, once again, see that we start in find mode. It always starts with find mode. And if I go to the far right and I click find with all the fields empty, okay, I click find. In this case, I have a large number of records. I have 2,687 die records, okay? And so anytime you have more than 1,000 records, you will see this message, okay? Because how often is it useful for you to navigate through individual records of over 1,000 die records in this case? Maybe sometimes that is useful, but it may be something also that you want to reconsider. Do I need to pare this down to a more manageable set of data? Okay, but in this case I will say yes. I will click yes. You see that it brings back all of my 2,687 die records, and once again I can navigate through those and the other examples that we used earlier, okay? All right. But for my next example, I want to use the print weight field, okay? The weight per foot or the kg per meter. Let's return to find mode, okay? And here's the print weight field. So you can use operators like greater than, less than, or range. So in this case then, let's use greater than 2. Let's say I want to see all of my dies that have a print weight greater than 2. So I type the greater than sign and 2 and click find. Okay, so now see that I have 822 records. Notice that the field is highlighted gray, and as I navigate through this, scroll through these records, you can see that every record is greater than 2. Okay. Now in the same way, I can go back to find mode, and I could type in less than 2. Okay, and then click find again. This time I do have more than 1,000 records. You can see the number here, so I'll say yes, I want to see all of those records. Okay, just go through this and you can see that every print weight now is less than 2. Okay. Now you can also use greater than or equal to 2, for example. So we can get the, include the number 2, or we can use less than or equal to, okay, whatever your number may be. Okay, yes. All right, so it would include the value that you type. We can also use ranges. So let's go back to find mode, and this time I will click, or rather I will type 1, and then the range operator is 2 periods or 2 dots. So 1 dot dot 2, let's say. This will return everything within 1 to 2. Scroll through these records and you can see everything is at least 1 and no more than 2. Okay, so far we have discussed some common operators, greater than equal to, less than, and less than or equal to, and then finally the range operator using the 2 dots. If we go back to find mode, once again you see 1 dot dot 2. Okay, let me clear that selection using the clear fields button here at the top right, and then show you an example using the description. Now earlier we saw an example with the customer name on the customer screen where I typed in Acme and it returned the 4 Acme customers. Let me show you a similar example here. I will type in the word channel and then click find. Okay, I have 110 die records that begin with the word channel. As I scroll through, you can see that each of these does in fact begin with the word channel. However, I also know that there are some die records where channel is in the description, but it's not necessarily the first word. Okay, let me return to find mode. So there I have the word channel, but this time I will start with another operator. The percent sign is an operator to search within the text to find the word channel or whatever I type anywhere within that text. So this time I have percent channel, click find, and as I scroll through the records, there's one right there. You can see the word channel is there, but it's not the first word. Okay, so we have records that begin with the word channel, and then also records that contain the word channel. All right, so once again, that is the percent sign operator. So at this point, you may be getting a little concerned that there are so many operators, all these things I have to remember in order to find the information that I'm looking for. I'm showing you how you can type in these operators because it is very useful for you to memorize them. It is a useful thing. However, it's not required. You don't have to memorize them because there is a way of viewing them from a list. Let me show you this first by clearing out my example, okay, with the clear fields button, and then going back to the top left side, and you see this checkbox here that says advanced find. Okay, I will check this box and notice the bottom of the screen. A new bar appears at the bottom. And this bar says, click a field to begin. Okay, so let's return to our print weight example. So I will click on print weight. Oh, and it has a previous example from what I was doing earlier. But let's say that I do want to find everything that's greater than 2. So from the list, you can see the options. There's is equal to, or less than or equal to, greater than, and including some other operators that we did not discuss on the manual terms. But here's not equal to. There's the range operator. There's also is null or is not null. And let's see, let me move the screen up so you can see all those. There's also contains and does not contain. Okay, but let's use our example we had earlier with greater than 2 for the print weight. So remember, I started by clicking on the print weight field, and it shows me my field name here as well. It says field print weight greater than 2, and now I click apply. Okay, and when I do, it simply pops in that selection within that field, and this should look familiar to you. Is greater than 2, just exactly the way we typed it in. And now we click Find. All right, so there is my selection of all my dies with a print weight greater than 2. Okay, so in the like manner, I can return to Find mode, and I can change that. Let's say I want to find everything that is less than 2 and apply that. Oh, sorry, let me, less than, there we go. All right, less than. Let me clear it first and choose less than. Okay, so we have to clear the selection first and then choose less than 2 and apply that. Right, so now we have the less than and we find. Okay, more than 1,000 records, so yes, I want to see them. And there they are. Okay, for the other example then, let's use the, the range operator that we discussed. Okay, so once again using the print weight field, I'll go back to Find mode, and I know now that I have to start by clearing my previous selection, and I will choose range. And I will say from 1 to 2, and apply that. We see 1.2, and find. Okay, so there are the same examples using the advanced find with the selections from the bottom. So once again, you can see the other selections that are there. Okay, let's clear that example, and let's go over to the description and use that example. Okay, so clicking on the description field, and then let me change my operator. So earlier, I showed you the example of searching for the word channel within the text. So the equivalent here is using the word contains. So I will choose contains and type the word channel and click apply. So once again, this will look familiar to you. You have the % channel. So, if you remember how to use that operator and what the operator is, then you can just simply type it in up there. But if you prefer, or you don't remember what the operator is, then just use the advanced find. Okay, and then we find everything with the word channel somewhere within the description. Okay, now one more very useful, very important feature to know about before we move on to the other modes. And this is the Show All grid that you see at the top right corner of the screen. There is this button here that looks something like a spreadsheet. And when I click here, Show All Rows in a Grid, it will open up a type of spreadsheet. It's showing all of the selected records. In this case, my last selection here, the 152 records. You can still see the number back there. Okay, but it shows all of those records in this grid view, and there are a number of things we can do with this grid view. First of all, let me just point out that you can rearrange these columns. I have die number here at the far left because that's probably the most useful place for it. However, that's not the default place for it. When you first open up the screen, it may be that everything is simply in alphabetical order. But you can rearrange these columns any way you like. So if I want to move customer number over here to the left, I can do that. Now, the order of these columns is saved for you by username. So if you're logging in as yourself, whatever arrangement you have for this screen and for any other screen where you have a show all, your arrangement will be saved for you. So I don't have to constantly be rearranging these columns. The next thing that's very useful about these columns is you can sort by any of the columns. If I can sort on description, either ascending or descending. Here's actual weight. Okay, so I can get these dies in order by their actual weight or any other column. Okay. Another thing that you can do is is to get a subset of the data that you're looking at here. Notice that beside each column there is a down caret, a down arrow beside each one of those. If I click the one beside description, now I see all of those values, all those unique values, and I can choose the ones that I want to see. So it may be that I want to start by clearing, oops, excuse me, let me do that again. It may be that I want to start by clearing all of my selections or removing the check marks to uncheck the select all, and then let me choose individual descriptions. I can choose the ones that I do want to see and then click apply. Okay, now we get a smaller set of that data, only the ones that we want to see. Okay, something else that you can do with this screen, which may be useful especially with selecting records in this way, is save data to file. This allows you to save this grid, the data in this grid, to a CSV file, or to an Excel file, or to an XML file. So you can choose your format and then save the data, and it's only going to save the data that's actually showing on that grid at the moment. Okay. Finally, you can use this as a type of navigation. If we need to see more detail or see all the detail about this record here, for example, this die number 00992, I can simply click on it and it returns me then to the die screen with that record. Okay, if I go back to show all, it maintains my last selection, whatever that may have been. You can see that the description has a check mark beside it, indicating that there is a filter. And to remove that filter, I can either click this Clear All Filters button here, because I can filter any number of columns, or I can return to my drop down here and click the Clear button here and return to all of my records. Okay, that is the Show All grid, a very useful feature in EPICS. Now let's discuss the other control panel selections. We know about Find. We know about View. Now View, of course, is not a selection. It is simply a mode that is automatic. When you find something, you are viewing those records. But the other selections that we have are New, Edit, and Delete. Let's start with Delete. Okay, so it is appropriately big and red here. When I click the Delete button, notice the mode selection shows Delete over here at the far left. Okay, and again, appropriately red and menacing. And then finally, to actually commit this deletion, I come over here to the Action button, which says Delete this die. So I will do that. I will click the button, and finally it says, are you sure you want to permanently remove this record? I will click Yes. Okay. Now, this is what you will most often see when attempting to delete such important records as dies or customers or parts, because there is so much other dependent upon this die record. It would be a rare thing for you to actually be able to delete a die. It says cannot delete this record because there are records in the die copy hist table that refer to this die number. Well, there are records in die copy hist, which means the history for the die, but there are many other records as well. There are sales orders dependent on this die. There are die copies that we have created that are dependent upon this die record being here. Okay, so most often you would not be able to delete a die record if it has any history or any copies or any other dependencies upon that die. Okay, and that would be the same for customers or parts, any other those key value fields. All right, so I will get out of this mode, out of this delete mode, by clicking cancel. I'll just cancel what I'm doing here. Okay, it returns me to where I was previously in view mode. Okay, so that's the delete mode. Let's discuss edit mode. When I click edit, you see the fields that may be edited, which in this case is most of them. All of these white background fields may be edited. Notice that the die number has this gray background. It may not be edited. Okay, so I will make a change to this die record. I will change the cavity code. I will input cavity code A for this die and now save the change. Okay, so now we see that cavity code A is there. And I also want to point out that all the changes that you make are recorded in a change log. There are a number of tabs across the top of the screen here, and one of those tabs is changes. So I will click changes, and you can see here the record of the change. Here's the date and the time and the user who made the change. Here's the column or the field that was changed. It also shows what the old value was, which was empty, and I changed it to A. You see old value and new value. And then finally you see the same information in a sentence type of format. Okay, that is the edit mode. Now let's discuss new mode. So new is the one option that you see in every case. If you have permission, that is, you always have the option of starting a new die record. So when we were in find mode a while ago, and the entire screen may be empty, it's waiting for us to find, even then we could start a new die record. If we're in find mode, we see the new option. So we always have this option to create a new die record. So I will click new. Notice that the new mode is this bright yellow indicator here. Also notice that new has the required fields with these green dots. Each of these green dot fields, and also if the screen contains a grid like this one does, you'll see the green dots there as well. So when you're entering, in this case, a new die record, you of course can enter all the information that you have, but you must include the data for these green dots. Okay, so we are not going to actually add a die record at this moment. The next thing we need to discuss then are the drop-down lists and how to navigate the drop-down lists. All right, so for that example, I want to open up the sales order screen. Okay, so we have seen some of these lists in our inquiries earlier, how we could just choose like a state or a pay terms code to use for inquiry. And of course we can do that same thing on all of these screens here. We can just make our selection and then click find and find the record if any data exists. Okay, so there's one more thing here to do with the control panel. You see there's no data was found to match your request. You may want to deselect the active orders only checkbox and try again. So take a look at the control panel, because some screens have a special checkbox like this one where it says active orders only. Okay, so I was selecting this ship to customer, and I am sure that I do have orders for them, but I do not have any active orders for that customer. Okay, so if I uncheck this active orders only, then click find again, well, I don't have any any sales orders at all for that ship to customer. So let me clear that and just do the same thing over here. Okay, with the bill to customer, apparently I have none for that customer either. Okay, I know I do have orders for this customer here, so I will choose the customer number, click find. Okay, so we know how to use drop-down lists for that purpose. Okay, but notice that this drop-down list, returning to find mode again, is a multi-column drop-down list. There are 4 columns here. Okay, and I can simply drop the list down and choose from those available values, but also want to point out that you can sort by any column within the drop-down list. So if I know the customer by name but not necessarily by number, then maybe I want to get it in alphabetical order that way. Or if I know the city or state that they're in, perhaps I could find it that way. Another thing I can do here is, let's say that I do know the city. I know they are in Dover. I can type in something that I do know about that customer. And then on my keyboard, and you can't see me doing this, but on my keyboard I am hitting Control L. Hold down the Control key, type the letter L. Okay, L for lookup. So Control L. It searches all 4 columns of the list to find the match. So there is my Dover customer. Okay, and then once again I can choose the value. It pops in now the customer number, and I can use that in my search. Okay, all right, but you can use the Control L within any of your lists to find your data, and then Control L once again to clear the last lookup, you might say, and let you look up again. So if I want to find all of my or customers I know, let's say in Pennsylvania, I can type PA, Control L, and you'll see the Pennsylvania customers here. You will also find other matches, like partners is PA. Okay, there's partner and partners. It will find those selections as well. Okay, let's clear that selection. And another thing you can do with drop-down lists, for lists that contain codes or lookup data, and by that I mean ship via code, for example, or ship terms code, where you're dealing with the data in terms of codes, but there's also a description. These are referred to as lookup codes or lookup tables, and there is a simple way to edit or add to this information. For example, the ship via code. Of course, I can use this list to select from my ship via codes. I can sort by either of these columns. Okay, but let's say that I do have a new shipper, and I want to add a new ship via code. There's a simple way to do that. Instead of a normal left click on this list, use a right click. If you right click on the list, then you will see this option to edit lookup table. Okay, so I will choose edit lookup table, and it opens this lookup table screen. Now there is another way that you can get to this from the administrator ribbon. However, this is a simple way to get directly to the information that you need to work with. So I can make changes to this. I could edit this, or I could add new records. And that's what I want to do in this case. So I will click Edit Table. Okay, and I'll come down to the very bottom where there's an empty row. And my new ship via record is going to be WY, and that is for Wiley Shipping. Okay, and then I come up here to the top and click Save Changes. Okay, so there's my new record, and I simply close the screen and return to my ship via code list. Now I will drop this list down and show you first of all that it's not there. Okay, my new record is not there. So what I have to do after creating a new record is once again right click on the list, and now you see an option to reload the list. Okay, now I'll drop the list down, go down to the bottom here, and there it is, Wiley Shipping. Okay, now finally, we want to talk about right-click navigation. So I want to look at only active orders. So I'll check the active orders only box and then come over here to find. And this brings back all of my active sales order items. You can see I have 360 active sales order items. I can scroll through those records once again. We know about how to work with that. But there is a lot of information on this screen, including things like the die number and the part number. And there's a lot of information here. Notice that as I mouse over the die number and the part number, the cursor changes. You see there's a question mark on the cursor. That's indicating that there is a right-click menu available. There is more information available to this field. So if I right-click on die, for example, I have a number of options here. And the one I want to show you today is Maintain Die. This is a quick way of taking you directly to the die screen with that die information loaded. So I can quickly navigate to the die screen to get all the detail that I need about the die. The same thing with the part. I can right-click on the part, choose Maintain Customer Part, and now we can see all the detailed information about that part record. The customer number is similar. However, when you mouse over the customer number, you can see that it brings up information about that customer. Okay. But if you right-click on the customer number, once again, you get this drop-down list where you can go to maintain the customer. Okay. And then you get similar options with the sales order number, with an order summary, and with the sales order item, where you have many options dealing with the sales order item. The maintain item, which simply opens up the sales order item screen. So essentially we're seeing two views of that same record at this point. So now just a quick recap of what we have discussed in this video. We started with the control panel, and we saw the various options of how to manage the control panel, how we can find records, how we can edit records and delete records and create new records. We saw the many options that there are with the find mode, and how we can use wildcard or operators to find various records, and within the find mode, how we can use the show all grid to see all of those records that we inquire on, and then search through those records by sorting, and then use that to select individual records. Okay. We talked about the advanced find, how we can use that to instead of typing in the wildcard characters or those operators. We discussed the drop-down lists and how we can manage those lists, and how we can also add to those lists in many cases if it's a lookup table. We discussed the multi-column drop-down lists like the customer, and then how we can type an example and use the Control L to find the information that we're looking for. And then finally, we discussed the right-click options on the die number, these key values: die number, part number, customer number, sales order number, item number, a number of these key values, and quick navigation, quick options, and it's worth diving into all these other many options that are on the right-click menus as well. But that's not part of the EPICS basics information. So this basics video, I hope, is very helpful to you in your navigating through all the EPICS information. As always, please contact FOI Incorporated with any questions you may have. Thank you.